In this series, we've delved into a range of cinematic genres, from the rom-com to the heist movie, unpacking what makes them tick and why they continue to draw directors and audiences alike. For our final show, we turn to the genre that has always been closest to my heart: horror. No other kind of film deploys images and sound to such powerful, primal effect as the horror movie, and horror is as strong today as it's ever been. One of the key tropes of horror movies is a juxtaposition of two worlds, the old and the new, light and dark, good and bad, and a journey from one to the other. We usually start in the familiar world, the world in which we can easily believe. Then the monster, the threat, the menace, the terror, must come from beyond, either from an older world unnaturally preserved, or from the depths of a broken mind, or from beyond a veil separating this world from another dimension.
Hello, Danny.
The ill-fated journey that brings us into contact with the monster is traditionally littered with warning signs that tell us clearly that something's just not right. Now, these prophecies of doom are often delivered by a wise peasant character who's more in the know than the sophisticated city slicker or dismissive local townsfolk. Here's Crazy Ralph in Friday the 13th doing his best to warn the newly arrived camp staff.
I'm a messenger of God. You're doomed if you stay here. This place is cursed. Cursed.
Well, it's very, homey.
Yeah.
This is a recurrent feature of horror cinema, locations in which evil itself seems to seep from the walls, the cellars, the attic. The location can be utterly mundane. Think of the house on Prospect Street from The Exorcist. There's nothing about it that tells us to stay away. Or is there? Look at this sequence in which Ellen Burstyn's Chris ventures into the attic in search of rats. Director William Friedkin makes brilliant use of silence here. There's no music, just some unsettling ambient noises. It's as if the house is taking Chris to another world, a world of darkness.
Smells nice.
Most horror films would be vastly diminished without their troubling score, creepy hints of looming danger, or at times ominous silences. The picture dominates our impression, but the sound is where much of the effect is achieved. One of the great joys of horror movies is the therapeutic release of tension and anxiety. Wes Craven once told me, horror movies don't create fear, they release fear. Now look at this sequence from Exorcist 3, which, for my money, contains one of the greatest jump scares of modern cinema. The scene is set in a hospital where a nurse on duty hears strange noises. She's already disturbed someone sleeping, giving us a scare. Now she's trying to put her fears out of her mind, but the audience is on the edge of their seats.
Thanks. It looks very inviting. Ouch.
Horror movies need their monsters, whether it's Dracula or Freddy Krueger, Henry the serial killer, a roaming demon, a stalking wraith, or a ravenous beast. And inspiration for these monsters can often come from real life. The most memorable of these is Leatherface, the murderous figure whose monstrously masked visage would become an icon of modern horror. Whatever your fears, when it comes to horror movies, you're going to need someone to help you, an expert. Who are you going to call? A savant.
Believe me, there is no other way. Unlike normal death, no peace manifests itself, for they enter into the fearful state of the undead.
The savant is a stock horror character who knows the enemy, someone upon whom the hero or heroine may call in order to aid their battle against evil and who may well be sacrificed. These characters are usually older and wiser than the protagonist. They can also be weirder. Think of Zelda Rubinstein's spiritual medium in Poltergeist, a character who initially seems ridiculous.
You don't mind hanging back? You're jamming my frequencies.
But whose knowledge of the next world proves invaluable.
Where was the last incident of bilocation? I get my strongest feeling. The point of origin is in the child's closet upstairs.
Many horror films crank up the tension and excitement with a chase sequence in which the monster pursues its prey and us, the audience. Speed is often a key factor. In Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead, our heroes are pursued by demons which lurk in the woods. With very limited resources, Raimi and his team fashioned a homemade Steadicam which they called the Shaky Cam. By mounting their camera on a plank of wood, they're able to get cheap but effective low-angle shots, giving the POV of evil forces rushing through the forest. By the 1940s, Dorothy Maguire was triumphing over her assailant in The Spiral Staircase, one of the very first slasher movies. Since then, we've had a string of final girls, such as Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, Heather Langenkamp in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Sigourney Weaver in Alien, all of whom have outlived their enemy.
You're nothing!
There's a ritual element to all genres, especially the genre that most often features satanic or sacrificial rituals. Traditionally, you'd have a monster and then have it defeated by the crucifix, a stake through the heart, or men with torches or silver bullets. And Van Helsing gets a few words at the end to reassure us that everything is right now. Today, we've grown used to the idea that the monster will return if a sequel seems viable. Almost all the Friday the 13th movies end with Jason showing signs of returning.
Andy! Yeah? Are you still out there? I can't hear you.
The horror novelist Clive Barker once told me that he thought there was something fundamentally reassuring about horror's capacity to keep coming back for more. As he said, OK, zombies may crash in through the French windows, but hey, at least there's life after death. But perhaps that's even worse. The idea that even the grave cannot stop the horror. As we learn in the 1931 Dracula, there are worse things awaiting man than death. Now that is scary. Sweet dreams.